Will the meeting please come to order? This meeting is being held in full compliance with the Sunshine Law and all provisions of law have been fulfilled. Please join me in the pledge
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
President Muir?
Here.
Councilman First?
Here.
Councilwoman Jenkins? Here. Councilman Taft?
Here.
Councilman Kaplan?
Here.
Councilman Takesh? Here. Mayor Dobies?
Yeah. Before we continue, I just need the girls that are going to present today, just the three of you here. Okay.
Yes, I'd like to read a proclamation, and this proclamation is for the 100th anniversary of the Girl Scouts, March 11th through March 17th, 2012. Whereas Girl Scouts of the USA, 3 million strong, is the largest girl-serving organization in the United States. And whereas the Girl Scout movement emphasizes self-confidence, self-respect, leadership skills, and decision-making. And whereas the Girl Scout movement celebrates the individuality in girls, empowering them to reach their full potential. And whereas Girl Scouts serve their community, taking action to make the world a better place. And whereas Girl Scouts USA is all-inclusive to all girls ages 5 through 17, offering programs responsive to their needs and interests. Now therefore, I, Ronald S. Dobies, Mayor, by virtue of the authority vested in me as the Mayor of the Borough of Middlesex, hereby recognizes Girl Scouts USA on their 100th anniversary and proclaim March 11th through the 17th as Girl Scout Week in the Borough of Middlesex.
I thought it would be nice if we had some words from our Girl Scouts to teach us a little bit about what you do or whatever you want to talk about. If you would speak right into the microphone so everybody can hear you. I'm the nervous one.
My name is, did you like hear me?
Okay,
just making sure. My name is Catherine Judy, and this is what being a Girl Scout means to me. I'm a girl with many passions. I love performing on stage, writing, playing music, but one of the things I love most is Girl Scouting. I've been a Girl Scout since I was in kindergarten. I was a Daisy, then moved on to being a Brownie, followed by juniors, cadets, and now I'm a senior, but I'm sure you knew that. There are many things to love about Girl Scouts: the trips, the community service, the cookies, of course, and being with my friends. I've known most of these girls since we were young. I was 5 when I first met them, but I wouldn't know how much I appreciate them until much later. I have 10 girls who actively participate in my troop. They are my closest friends and really are like my sisters. Whenever I feel like the world is out to get me, I can count on them to make me feel better. Each of them have many special qualities that I love, and I know they will support me in whatever I do. Unless I go off the deep end, and then I'm sure they will straighten me out. Honestly, I can only think of 2 times that I had a fight with 2 of my other sister Girl Scouts, and both were solved within a day. Girl Scouting to me is an opportunity to make my community a better place, and a chance for me to make friends forever. Not to sound cliche, but it's true. I'm actually pretty shy. I wouldn't know that I would still have friends if I didn't join Girl Scouts. But Girl Scouts have strengthened the bonds of friendship and helped me gain confidence in myself.
very nice, very nice. No, I can't join, but it'd be nice to know when you feel down and out, everybody's against you. I might want to come over and see you at Girl Scouts. Thank you very much, honey.
Let me correct you. You can join.
I can join. Wow.
As an adult, you can.
Girl Scouts means a lot to me. It makes me feel great as I progress through the stages. I started out as a Daisy and made a lot of great friends. I became a Brownie and have done many things I would have not done normally. It is a great deal of fun. What I like best about Girl Scouts is how my friendships grow stronger and that I can be part of the community. For example, helping the Ronald McDonald House and decorating the windows of the Middlesex Public Library. Participating in cool new experiences with Girl Scouts makes me feel special to be a part of such a great group of people. And I will stay in Girl Scouts until I reach my goal of the Gold Award. I feel proud of the fact that I am still learning and that I can also be there to help younger girls with their journey. troop can make a difference in the world. It might even help me get into the college I want to go to.
Very good. That's very nice. That's right. It's going to be a hard act to follow, I'm telling you.
I'm here representing what we call KAGS, the adult Girl Scouts. As a new resident in the area 16 years ago, my daughter joined as a brownie, was the meeting, and I can honestly say that 16 years later, after spending summers up at the WIC camp, I've learned a lot. You think your children are bad until you spend weeks up at camp with the Girl Scouts and find out all the different things that they do. But it enabled me to have friendships. I got involved with that and opened up an area for me. And I have, my bonds are thick with my tag members. I just wanted to read this little thing because this is how I feel about Girl Scouts as a leader. It says, your dishes went unwashed today and you didn't make the bed. You took God's hand and went with him to Girl Scouts instead. That your house was neglected, that you didn't sweep the stairs. In 20 years, no one on earth will know or even care. But that you helped a little girl from child to adult grow. In 20 years, the whole wide world will look, see, and know.
Very nice. Very nice. Tell me something about this Camp DeWitt, because I have two grandsons that are in Hillsborough, Boy Scouts, and they love to go to Camp DeWitt. There's got to be something there that's not in other places they go to.
My son was a girl.
Good point.
My son was not an honorary Girl Scout, but he went up there to the ranger program that allowed me to work up there.
Very nice. Very nice. I do have a little something I would like to give you as a remembrance of the Mayor and Council, and I'll read it to you, then I'll present it to you. It's in recognizing the 100th anniversary of the Girl Scouts USA. We acknowledge the Middlesexboro Girl Scout Organization for their efforts in developing our young residents and for the many accomplishments and services these young girls provide our borough. And it's signed the 2012 Mayor and Council. I'd like to present that girl to you. And Council President, would you come up with me, please? Present this plaque to this young lady right here. And thank you for all the help the Girl Scouts have given us, and especially the young ladies. Again, thank you very much.
And I just want to present to you a copy of the proclamation that and again, thank you for all your hard work. Thank you.
Hold the young people here longer than you. They yell at from their parents. Before the meeting starts, if you want to leave, feel free to leave. If not, you can stay, and the meeting will probably be about an hour and a half. Thank you very much for discuss it before we, the resolution, we withdraw the resolution first.
I think, what do you prefer, Mayor?
Rob, do that one.
Okay, good evening, Mayor, members of the council, pleasure to be here, Andy Hodulek. Tonight, you're...
Can you hear me in the back, please? Yes? Okay, thank you.
Okay. Tonight, the objective is to introduce your 2012 budget. This starts the process in terms of review by the state. The state will review your budget, get back with any comments, et cetera, and any, if there are any required changes to your budget. We don't envision any, but you never know when they go through the review. And then actually, what's scheduled then is the public hearing date after introduced, which is scheduled for, I believe, April 24th. And that is which time is the public hearing. The budget is open to the public for any questions or comments regarding where this plan is at. And as this is introduction here, obviously, the budget is still, say, work in progress. There can be amendments to the budget prior to its final adoption. That would be after the public hearing on the 24th. Currently, the way that the budget stands at this point, there is a increase over last year's amount to be raised of $404,000, which is about 3.8% over the previous year. So that's where the budget stands. Like I said, it continues to be reviewed during this time period. And with that, if there's any questions or you want to have any guess or
Finance Chairman, have any comments at this point?
No, it's just that the budget is still a work in progress, and this is a good first step in introducing it, and we'll continue to work on it so we can get the most for our taxpayers from their budget. So we'll continue working on it over the next month and a half.
I guess so. This is good, I guess. This is the resolution.
correct, yes.
Okay, so, just as be resolved that the following statements of revenues appropriation shall constitute the municipal budget for the year 2012, and be further resolved that the budget be published in the Courier News in the issue of April 9th. The governing body of the Borough of Nueces is hereby approved the following as the budget for the year 2012, as introduced.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Please call the roll.
Council President Demura?
Yes.
Councilman First? Councilwoman Jenkins?
Yes.
Councilman Kaplan?
Yes.
Councilman Pat?
Yes.
Councilman Takac? Yes.
Motion carried. We have no communications with appointments this time. New business.
New business. Yes,
You did your job. That was
Thank
good.
you. Yeah, one good consideration is obviously is that this year is no longer that extraordinary aid process that we don't have to, so we don't have to wait on months to make a decision in terms of aid. So this process should move on a lot better than it has in the past.
Thanks.
It is ordinance number 1808-12. A bond ordinance providing for acquisition and demolition of certain flood-prone properties for development as open space in and by the Borough of Middlesex in the County of Middlesex, New Jersey, appropriating $2,540,000 therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $2,540,000 of bonds or notes of the borough to finance part of the cost thereof.
Can I have a motion? Let me explain first that although we're putting money in, we do get it back from FEMA, and probably the Green Acres will make up 100%. So you have to appropriate the money first. Our next step after we get approval to proceed would be to have appraisals of the properties. And then if the property owners agree with us, then we'll move on. If they disagree, they can hire their own appraiser, and then we'll take a look at both. But this is the first step of several steps that are going to be taken.
And this is the purpose of 7.
Yes, this is the seven places. Do I have a
Motion. You need a motion.
motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Council President Demura?
Yes.
Councilman First?
Yes.
Councilman Jenkins?
Yes.
Councilman Kaplan?
Yes.
Councilman Path?
Yes.
Councilman Tucker?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Public hearing, we'll have an ordinance number 180612, an ordinance of the Borough of Middlesex, County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey, amending the codes of the Borough of Middlesex, Chapter 420-24, outdoor storage of recreational vehicles and boats.
I move, Mayor, I'm going to make a motion to table this ordinance tonight. And the reason why is over the last week and a half or so, I've received many emails from boat owners. And as I tried to return those emails, I did get a return email from one of the boat owners. And in the email that I received, he had made a statement saying a boat with 50 to 200 gallons of gas in the backyard on a side yard is not safe. You know, in this whole process, and I know we've talked about convenience, I know we've talked about aesthetic reasons for why we were looking at changing this ordinance. All through this process, I kind of assumed that these boats, when they were stored, the gas would be drained out of it after making some phone calls, obviously, and this email that I received from a boat owner, obviously that's not the case. So I'm making this motion because I think that we should present this to our fire authorities in the borough and get their response to this along with our county fire inspector also. And I don't want to delay this in moving forward, so I'd like to put a time limit on it. I'd like to see if we can get this done before the next meeting, because again, I don't want to delay this anymore. I know there's people in the audience and they're waiting for a decision on this ordinance. But I think before we move forward, I think we need to know where our fire officials stand on this, especially with, and again, I just assumed that, and I guess I shouldn't have assumed that, but you know, 50 to 200 gallons of gas is a lot, and to me, that's an issue. And I think that we should get their information first.
Is there a second to the motion to the table?
Second.
Is there any further discussion?
What direction are you looking to as far as gas going? Are you saying maybe it has to be drained?
I don't know, but I guess before we move and talk about putting in a side yard or whatever we're going to decide on the vote of this ordinance, is that I want to make sure that our fire officials say that they don't have an issue with that. And then depending on what they come back to us, we may, you know, we're going to have to make a decision. I mean, I just feel more comfortable if we did that.
You're not saying it's more safe in the front yard than it is in the side yard?
With 50 to 200 gallons of gas, my opinion, I don't know if it's safe anywhere, but that's my personal opinion, okay? But I'd like to get input from the fire authorities for that.
All those in favor of tabling the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Kathy, I'm going to direct you to send a copy to Jim Rinker, our fire official, with the comments made by the two councilmen.
Okay. Ordinance number 180712, an ordinance amending chapter 248, land development. Well, this was the land development to rescind section 248-17A3, recreational vehicles in the code of the Borough of Middlesex.
I understand this doesn't have any impact on where the recreation vehicles are, is that right?
No, this is an ordinance in the land, I guess, land use,
Yeah.
and the planning board made this recommendation.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Please call the roll.
Council President Demura?
Yes.
Councilman First? Councilwoman Jenkins? Councilman Kaplan?
Yes.
Councilman Path?
Yes.
Councilman Tucker? Yes.
Motion carried. We have the adoption of minutes, February 28, 2012. What I think?
Yeah, well,
Oh, I'm sorry.
But I started this table.
The second wasn't tabled, so you have to public hearing. I'm sorry. Anyone that wants to speak on the proposed ordinance 1807-12, please use the phone up the stream, state your name and address in case we have to get back to you.
Second Street. Just clarification, aren't the two issues interrelated, the two ordinances? I mean, can you rescind one without enacting the other?
I think one is the land use ordinance and the other is not the land use. As far as
The other is zoning.
It's a zoning and land use, two different.
Okay, so comments on the zoning portion will be...
Well, the one that most people are interested in is the zoning.
Just clarification.
That's fine.
Let me say the 131 Second Street. Why are you rescinding the ordinance 248-17?
At the recommendation from our planning board, in the land use, that there's no reason for that ordinance to be in there, because if that's, the issue that we're talking about tonight is zoning, as far as boats, it's not land use. And there's no need for that ordinance to be there, because it doesn't affect land use. So that's why the planning board
Well,
made that
that's the
recommendation.
ordinance that actually saved me last year. And I found out in June when I sat through half a year of meetings, to come to find out that that ordinance legally says that I can park my boat where I park it. Now you're gonna go and remove it.
In reality, Mr. Samer, that ordinance does not say that, okay? Because it's in the land use part of our code book. It's
I
not
don't
the
have
zoning.
the ordinance in front of me, but it
I know
basically
what the
says
ordinance
under
says.
section B.
But it was in the land use, and the planning board in reviewing that, there is no need for that ordinance to be there because it does not affect our land use, any situation for land use. Zoning is the issue here, and that's where the ordinance is that
Well,
we're
then I
dealing
don't
with.
see any need to remove it then. Just let it be.
We're moving this on the recommendation of the planning board. And I agree with it. I don't think there's any
Yeah, I
more to be
know.
there.
You don't agree with anything the planning board says though.
Hi, Darlene Devereaux, 73 Borough Avenue, Middlesex. I know they're talking about this trailer ordinance, and 10 years ago when we moved here, we contacted the zoning board in order to put our trailer in the driveway. And it was the zoning board who told me I had to put in a driveway, another driveway. I had a single driveway, they told me I had to put in a secondary driveway. So it was the zoning board who told me I had to put it in so I could park it there, and now you guys are saying I can't park it there. And I can't put it behind my
No,
house.
this doesn't change that. This does not change that.
I can still park my trailer in my driveway.
Yes.
But they're saying, no,
Right.
that's not.
Well, what we're talking about is the zoning. Is that
The other
a
one's-
motor home or is it a trailer?
It's a travel trailer.
It's a trailer, okay.
Right.
Then they are affected by the ordinance.
Right. And you guys were the ones who told me to put it there. I had to pay to put it there. Okay, and I can't put it behind my house unless you guys are hiring a rig to lift it over my house. So what happens to people like me? There's no side yard, there's nothing on that street.
That's why we're in the process of doing this, to try to find an option to try to help as many people as we can.
But wouldn't I be grandfathered into the fact that you guys are the people?
Do you have any documentation from the zoning board?
You guys have permits, I had to get a permit to put it in. And on the permit, it says that I have to put in a double wide driveway. One of the guys from the zoning board actually came to my house and told me where I had to put the driveway.
You live on George, right?
Yep.
And you have the two driveways side
Yep,
by side.
I didn't have two, I had one.
Yeah, you had
It was
one.
in there. Now I had to put two in.
Kathy, can we take down her name and address and then I'll go to the zoning office and see if there is a permit?
There's a permit, because I had to put it in. I had to pay for the permit and I had to pay to put it in. And so people like me, I can't put it behind my house, so.
Can you give Kathy your phone number also?
Sure, that's.
You don't have to do it.
Everybody can know.
Just bring it around.
And another point I wanted to bring up, you guys are talking about the gas in these motorhomes or whatever, but what's the difference
No,
with all the,
we're not talking
I
about
mean in the boats?
We're
What's
talking-
the difference if anybody's car being in the driveway with a full tank of gas? It's about the same amount.
And there may not. Well, a car is maybe 12 to 14, maybe 22 to 24, but it may not be. I just want to hear from our fire authorities that it's not an issue. And if they say it's not an issue, then that's fine. Okay, I just want to hear from them.
Okay, but does this also apply to motorhomes? Because,
I thought you had a motor home.
no, I don't, I have a travel trailer. But I'm just saying, you're saying it, because in the ordinance, I don't see it saying a motorhome, so does that mean a motorhome?
There's a separate ordinance dealing with motorhomes, that's why.
All right, thank you.
Middlesex, I have an RV, it's in my backyard. I'm just a little confused, and I don't understand why there's such an issue on this motor trailers. Why are we making such a big issue on, do you guys have RVs, any of these? I mean, it's a recreational vehicle that people enjoy doing. I'm legal, I don't even have to be here, it's in my backyard. But, you know, people live in the Western States, a small piece of property. I mean, yeah, is it an eyesore? If it's an eyesore and it's dirty and it's not kept up or registered, it should be taken into consideration to get rid of it. But I just think that it's a lot of table and stuff, and I haven't really followed it, but it seems like these are making a lot of nonsense out of something that maybe really needs to be just dropped. It's crazy. It doesn't seem right. Just my opinion.
Yes, my name is Mr. Griggs. I've lived in Middlesex for about 7 years. I chose the community partially because it's family oriented, and that's, you know, there was things I could do. Until recently, my stepmother was the, you know, in charge of the Scalawag Middlesex Chamber of Commerce. I lived at Seton Hall Law and have an MBA from Seton Hall. I also own 2 nearby businesses in Greenbrook and Bridgewater. My wife owns the Middlesex Laundromat, and you know, I chose it for family oriented. I'm a Boy Scout leader in the community, and you know, I think it's obtrusive if people are covering their trailers and you know keeping them up. I don't see why we have to remove it. It just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. You know, and it's part of the reason I chose to live here is because you know things were open and it was available for me to do things with my family. If you're going to change that, it makes the community, you know, less likely for people who want to move into it. I think, you know, I just think it's a little excessive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any of the speakers that spoke, if after the meeting's over, when we break, if you would just give your addresses, we got the names, we need the addresses in case we have to fact.
I mean, since it seems we're opening up for public comment, and we get my 2 cents in. My name is Chris Master, 128 2nd Street. I've lived in the borough 22 years. I've had 5 boats over the course of those years, never had an issue. And I've been dealing with this ordinance thing for about a year with the borough. And I have a couple of comments to make that I hope you'll consider about the proposed ordinance as written. I think when you guys get the rewrite, you sacrifice fairness for expedience. And what I mean by that, it's pretty expedient to say, divide the property in half, the back half is yours, and we'll even give you up to the front face of the house. But it's not a thoughtful solution. Middlesex is not a gated community. There's a lot of odd-sized lots and non-conforming driveways scattered throughout the borough. It's not a one-size-fits-all. It's the assumption, it's your guys' assumption when you rewrote this ordinance that 90% of the residents are going to be okay with this. But having walked the streets and tried to recruit people, I think about 50% of the people are going to be in non-conforming. And it's going to be financially punitive to them whether they choose to comply or do otherwise. So I think also in this community, a lot of people bought boats and campers and RVs in lieu of taking vacations because it was a more cost-effective option. You're, in a sense, undoing their decision that they made. The other issue I've had is you substituted enforceability for reasonableness. And the question I'll ask with the rewrite the way it is it reasonable that you treat the tongue of the trailer as the same as the body of the camper in that it can't exceed the front of the house? The tongue of the trailer is a two-inch square piece of tube. So you've made it enforceable, but you've not made it reasonable. If the sole goal of the ordinance is enforceability, you accomplish that. But the goal shouldn't be to make it enforceable, but the code enforcer's job easier. It's got to be something that's fair to the residents. A more reasonable and thoughtful approach would be to have the residents park their vehicles as far back in the driveway as possible, ensuring within reason that they are doing everything possible to reduce their visible footprint. It's not an easy solution to enforce, but it is reasonable and fair. And what more beyond that can any reasonable person ask, rightfully demand of these owners? I've heard it claimed that this proposed ordinance is similar to other local townships, but a quick call to Piscataway Township should about dispel that myth, if anyone cares to make that phone call. I'm going to remind the council that Middlesex County is a waterfront county, and we've got a pretty sizable grant for parks and recreation. And in a sense, a percentage of that came directly from these recreational activities, which we're now making more difficult for some of the residents. So once again, I want you guys to reconsider the changes you're looking to adopt. The compromise you should be striving to achieve is a reasonable compromise between neighbors for their benefit, with the code enforcement concerns as a secondary consideration.
Thank you. I got into this a little late. Everything happened last year. It's my understanding though on the boats that if they do nothing, am I correct that they have to park it in the backyard? Is that
Backyard.
the backyard is the current ordinance, so that would even be more of a hardship if that's what you're talking about on boats. That was my understanding. Again, I wasn't around for most of the discussion that happened last year.
I'm just telling you to put one.
I understand. We got your message. Thank you.
Just for the record again, it was Doug McCarry, 225 First Street, Middlesex. I've been a resident since 1949 in Middlesex.
Thank you.
Robert Leonard, 658 Pound Brook Road. I just don't understand why we can't just put it in the driveway. This is very simple. If you don't have people complaining about it, why can't you just have it in the driveway? What's the problem with that?
Oh, sir, are you talking the boats or are you talking about the recreational boats?
Either, anything. What's the difference? You pay taxes.
The boat part was tabled for more discussion and more delivery. The hearing that we have now is the elimination of that part of the 1807 ordinance amending chapter 248. So I hear you on the boat, we'll put that down otherwise, but I've got to stay on track and talk about the one that's up for public hearing. You'll have an opportunity when they bring back the one on the boats to talk, but we're taking your notes down. Thank you.
My name is Ron Lopez. I live on 38 Stella Place here in Middlesex. I've been a town resident for 10 years. And I have to tell you, in the 10 years that I've lived here, I've never felt the need to come before you and say a word about anything. I don't own a boat. I don't own a trailer. If I don't care if it's in someone's driveway, then why do you care? It simply doesn't offend me. It doesn't bother me. I don't find it unsightly. And I see no need for this. I wonder if this is sort of from a neighbor feud between two people, someone who didn't like the look of their boat or their trailer or their next door neighbor's yard, and just progress from there. I just can't see why we're doing this. It's a recreational vehicle. This is something that people take joy in and pleasure, whether it's a boat or an RV. It's something that they enjoy. What you're doing is you're going to create a situation where you're going to have groups of fire people who jump through just to enjoy their lives. That's not community friendly, and it doesn't in any way feel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Get some homework. some clarification on what your vehicle holds in fuel. Your vehicle can hold anywhere from between 12 and 40 gallons worth of fuel, depending on what type of vehicle you have in your driveway. As for the boats, normal fuel capacity is around, at the most, 100 gallons, unless you're talking some sort of big, like a go-fast boat. Recreational vehicles, which are tow-behind trailers, they also have propane tanks in them and stuff like that. So there is no different danger in between gasoline, diesel fuel, and propane. So that you might want to take that into consideration also. As for the boats and recreational vehicles being parked in someone's driveway, the way I feel is I don't see a problem with that. If it's that person's home and they have a lot that is non-conforming to this ordinance, whereas they are inhibited from now putting that vehicle in their backyard or along their side yard, there should be, in my opinion, some sort of exclusion for them to now be able to put that vehicle in their driveway, as long as it is far enough back to where it is not impeding traffic or anything like that. And in my opinion also, if you do not include something like that within this ordinance, these people do have, in my eyes, a good ground for a suit against the town for discrimination, because they own these vehicles, which are legally registered and insured, and they now are being prohibited from owning them or having them on their own property. But again, Council and Mayor, I strongly urge you to think about that, because I doubt the town wants to open itself up for a lawsuit from a band of, as you can see, very concerned and united citizens. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, there's another thing, you know, if you were to take the RV and put it down D&B, they stored it, he charges like $65 a month. Take that times 12. You know, I mean, again, as legal as today, my trailer is in my backyard, but for people that don't have that option, then $65 is a lot of money each month to be paying to D&B Auto or wherever else. I mean, that's the going rate on it, and it's you know, it's just a burden they're throwing on people's expenses, I think.
Thank you. I'm going to close the public hearing now on the proposed ordinance.
We already voted.
Huh?
We have to vote, want to vote again? Yeah, that was on the second ordinance that they voted on, and the other separate public hearing.
On the advice of the council, I'm told that we voted on this already. However, anyone wants to change their vote, I would go around and do. No. Okay, there's no change, so that's passed. We did take all the comments on the vote and the RVs from, even though it's not part of the ordinance that we were talking about, we did take the comments. We have the adoption of 2 minutes, February 28, 2012 regular meeting minutes, and February 28, 2012 executive session meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to accept those? For a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Standing committee reports, finance?
Nothing this time.
Recreation?
The swimming pool applications are online at the library and Borough Hall. The pool is going to be open from Memorial Day until June 23rd, weekends only. Pool open on June 23rd full time. The 100-year anniversary committee will be at the first meeting in April, which is April 10th. We set the date of the event for July 20th, with July 21st as the rain date.
The logo contest is underway. The flyers have been sent out to Walker, the high school, as well as posted on the website for rec, and it appears in the About Our Town. The deadline for the logo contest is March 30th, and the 100-year committee will pick the winner for the logo contest at their April 4th committee meeting.
One thing that came up, recommended by two of our staff members, is to reach out to the high school art classes and see if they can do some murals on some of our walls in-house. The construction officials saw a nice one up, I guess, north of here, where they sort of highlighted where the high school would be, and then come around this area showing the borough hall, the Christmas garden, recreation center, and stuff like that. Might be worthwhile talking. I think you have a representative from the school board, right? Might be a nice idea.
Okay.
Is that it?
Now, as far as recreation,
Okay.
Easter is scheduled for March 31st at 3 with a rain date of April 1st. And then I have to apologize to Nadine because this was supposed to be done at the last meeting, but I ended up being sick. Nadine Kemi came to our Recreation Commission meeting on February 13th. She's requesting that we name the softball field in Mountain View Park after Mr. Stan Sevierdon, who passed away in November 2011. He was a former vice principal, a teacher, and girls varsity softball coach for over 37 years. The Sevierdon family has generously established a scholarship at MHS, and the 2011 class will donate the funds necessary to secure a sign and installation, and the sign would read the Sevierdon Memorial. So I wanted to put that out there and see how the council feels about that.
I'll just indicate that Council President, Councilwoman Jenkins and I attended a meeting with Dr. Baker, and this was discussed, and it was our feeling that the Board of Education would do whatever they have with their teachers, and we would do on our end, like most of the fields that we have named after have been people that have been very active with the town. I'm just telling you what the opinion of three people were on the council. They might change their mind now.
Yeah, and I'll also say that the liaison for the Board of Ed also mentioned to me one of the baseball fields, actually, with Margaret, the school baseball fields. So that's something that they're going to look at doing.
So I also would like to know how the other members of the...
Yeah, I was going to put down and see if anybody had any strong feelings. No. Jeff, anything? No. Michael? Okay. All right, so that's basically denied.
Do I get to say anything?
Pardon?
Yeah,
You will have time later on to talk, right?
Okay.
Anything from Flag?
I'm here this time.
Public Works?
Oh, Public Works, sorry, that's me. Yeah, I just wanted to mention that Public Works has set the schedule for street sweeping, and they'll start in District 10, March 26th, and it looks like they'll be in all the districts, March, April, May, August, September, and October.
Thank you. Anything from administration?
Nothing at this time.
Thank you. Is there anyone here for the high school lights?
That's the council.
Pardon? Oh, I'm sorry. That's all right. I like this. Right past you.
But I'm here for the high school lights.
Okay.
Just out of curiosity.
I have to do his report first. I skipped him. I'm sorry. I'll be right back.
Okay, all right.
Did everyone get a copy of the instruction?
Yes.
We can approve the February 2012.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. First of all, the lights are going to be taken down tomorrow morning, from what I talked to the superintendent today. I'll just go through a scenario and why certain things happen. On the 1st of January, I met with the borough engineer and asked him to evaluate the chained football field lights. On the 11th, he came back with a report talking about the wooden cross arms being deteriorated. On March 2nd, I received several emails from residents, and I responded to them asking about the track and also the football field lights and field. On the same day, I received a visit from a parent who had a child, a student in the track program. At that time, I sent an email to Dr. Baker asking him to remove the lights in case they were a hazard. But I also indicated I'm not sure the council would pay their share. And I'll tell you why. At that time, we were asked to pay half of our share, which was going to be $4,000. The only money the CFO will tell you that I had was $2,500. And there is a resolution tonight that we are appropriating the money to do that thing. So it wasn't that the council didn't want to do it. It's legally I couldn't do the funds. We received a letter from the borough engineer on dated 3/7/12, which I received on the 8th, indicated without testing and a detailed inspection of the cross arms that he recommended the fixtures and cross arms be removed and replaced, as the current installation should be considered unsafe. So that's the first time either side heard that they were unsafe. He said the components should be removed as soon as possible. He also indicated the poles appeared to be out of phone and arguably at the end of their useful life. Mentioned already that 3 of us met with Dr. Baker, Board of Education President, and other members of the Board of Education and members of their staff to discuss the football field and lights as well as several other subjects. I then authorized Dr. Baker and the Board of Education to remove the lights as soon as possible and that we would pay our share. A new quote was received by Greg Mulvey, and it was obtained for $5,100, which our share would be $2,550. So I almost made it with the exception of $50 instead of the original $4,000. Now the big thing that's coming is the Board of Education, not us. We'll have to cost out the replacement of the lights and poles and renovation of the football field. They must decide if they're going to have night football. Unless we can get a large grant, we will not be able to have a turf field that would run about $1 million alone. New lights with poles could be expensive depending on the candle power of the lights. We heard as much as $360,000. So just tell me where it's at now. The light should be removed tomorrow morning, according to Dr. Baker.
Mr. Mayor, I do have a question, and I know Councilwoman Jenkins does too. Is in that letter from the engineer, you also questioned the poles as being an issue also.
Yeah, that's what I said.
I mean, if we're going to take down the lights, I mean, shouldn't we be looking to take down these poles too?
Yeah,
I mean, isn't that an issue? I think the poles would be just as much an issue as the lights are.
I think the poles are wood again, they're creosote, okay, so the optimum would to put the new aluminum, and then you can have them for 25 or 30 years hopefully, or whatever other metal they use to put them on. Yes, the answer is yes.
So are we looking to get a quote?
I have some quotes, but they're light. The lights alone, we're gonna, this is what I heard at the beginning. The lights alone would be 80 to 90,000. The poles plus the light, the minimum amount would be $145,000 to $150,000.
Yeah, that's
and that depends on the candle power.
Right.
If you go with the big candle power, you can go up to 381,000.
I'm not worried about replacing. That's the school's decision,
yeah, right.
The Board of Ed's decision. But as far as the existing poles that are there now, in that letter from the engineer, he kind of insinuated that those poles may not be safe also.
Right.
My concern is, why are we getting a quote to remove those poles also?
I said that same thing to Dr. Baker. And right now, the lights are the most important, and then the poles are next.
Can I just say that last night at the Board of Ed meeting, Dr. Baker kind of gave the impression that he felt that the poles were fine. He said that they're good for another 10, 15 years. That he didn't see a need to have them removed or taken down. So it's kind of a contradiction.
I have a comment from Predator too that says the poles are safe. The idea, if you're going to spend that kind of money on the lights, it would be better to put the newer poles up. The letter that I sent and that I read, he talked about 8 foot of the poles being having passed their useful life. So, you know, you take 8 foot, you might as well knock the whole things down.
Mayor, I have a question. We're taking the engineer's report and we're taking off the things we want by stating the lights are unsafe. But then they stated that the poles are unsafe, but we're discounting that. Why?
We didn't say that. We're saying that the Board of Education has questioned it, and go ahead. I had to get them approved to take the lights down. That was the first step. The next step, we'll talk to them tomorrow, if they push it for the poles. They say that they're unsafe. You gotta read I sent everybody a copy of that. You gotta read this because it says, without testing and detailed inspection of the cross arms, we recommended the fixtures in front. That's without testing, okay? So that's his opinion at the point, I agree with it. I agree with that.
Without testing the supports. That's the top portion.
That's right.
So we're taking this down without testing it. That's what you're telling me.
That's right. At this point, he's made a comment that it's unsafe, and that they should be removed as soon as possible. That's what I'm going with. That's the liability, okay? He did say the poles have to be removed immediately, but he says, and argumentatively,
He feels the poles are unsafe.
he feels they've reached the end of their life.
So how come we're not getting a quote for the whole job to take it down rather than just piecemealing it?
I just gave the 3 quotes that the Board of Education gave me, and with the poles,
No,
the
I know, you're talking about
That's to
replacing that.
reinstall.
That's talking about
Yeah,
replacing
just
it.
take it down.
Okay?
That's replacing.
I feel the Board of Education should get a new quote, taking the complete poles down, along with the unsafe pole as per our engineer, and the unsafe lights. So we're gonna do that. Why would we do that?
That sounds good.
I think that we should move forward as far as any funding until everything's down. Yeah, if the truck shows up there once to take everything down.
Go with it?
No, I feel we need to get a quote for the complete project.
If you consider the poles unsafe also, are you going to split the cost of the poles?
The engineer stated poles are at the end of their life and it possibly could be unsafe.
That's not what he asked. If you consider the poles to be unsafe, will you split the cost with the Board of Education for removal of the poles?
Because they're unsafe, yes, I would. I'm speaking for myself, but I would, yes.
Thanks. You get that to it.
What? The field? Yeah. Depends where Dr. Baker lives.
The problem is, we don't know if they're gonna put new lights up at all, because they haven't decided whether they're gonna have any football.
The issue here is it's our field, and we have to get an agreement together that hasn't been done for the last year and a half, and that'll take care of the other issues. But right now, that's our field. If those things are unsafe, we have to deal with them. And I just think that I agree that the poles should go down with the lights, and you know, if the Board of Ed is agreeing to pay half of it, then we'll pay half of it. That's my opinion.
I think Frederick can do that quicker.
That's
I just subtracted 2. Yeah, that's right.
That has nothing to do with taking down.
So we'll pass that on to the superintendent tomorrow.
Right.
And also to let him know that just because the lights are unsafe, the poles stay to be unsafe too. So either way, the borough is held accountable for the lights fall or the pole falls. So what's the difference?
Just one update, if I may, Mr. Mayor. South Avenue improvements, the road improvements. This is for the township of Piscataway. We did get a price back for what they're asking would be Middlesex's share of improvements, which is just short of $900,000. They've also given us an idea of how much the appraisals would be. We have 3 properties where a portion of the properties would need to be acquired for the road improvements and widening, and the total for the appraisals was $2,500. That does not include acquisition cost. So
My problem is that I can't see this council voting to spend $830,000 on South Avenue. We have other roads in town that are probably more higher priority than South Avenue. And I don't see any need to to do the appraisals if we're not gonna do the road.
I think at this time we should inform Piscataway that basically as far as our portion of it, we're on hold. Because,
I directed the attorney to so notify the chairman.
That's out there.
We do have, it's not on the agenda, but it's a request to waive the road opening permits for the bridge, which the county is paying for, and the county asked us to charge.
Not charge yet. That's a normal function that we usually do for the county, right?
That's correct. The county normally does not pay the local fees that are required for permitting to do road opening, in this case, road opening permits. So in the normal course of events, what would happen is that the permit application would be received for opening the road, and then we would make a decision as to waive the fees or not before the permit's issued. In this case, they're starting to work there already because we're working this with Piscataway Township. So the board would need to act on the request to waive the fee now.
Can you draft a quick resolution, the construction officials can have to have a resolution, make it even positive, for waive the thing that they can vote on.
All right. We're moving along?
Yeah, we're moving right along.
The consent agenda. Resolution 8512, the tax collector is hereby authorized to issue a check in the amount of $7,206.34 and a $4,400 premium to redeem tax sale certificate 2011-1759, block 191, lot 11, 339 Lorraine Avenue. Resolution 8612, the governing body hereby declares the police dispatch equipment Orbicom TDM-150 surplus. Resolution 8712, the tax collector is hereby authorized to refund the 2010 New Jersey Homestead rebate on various properties that have prepaid their 2012 property taxes before the state of New Jersey sent the rebates to the borough. Resolution 8812, providing for a temporary budget until the adoption of the 2012 budget. Resolution 8912, a resolution supporting participation in the Sustainable Jersey Municipal Certification Program.
Do I have a motion? So moved. Is there a second? Second. Is there anyone? There's none. Please call the roll.
Council President Demuro?
Yes.
Councilman First?
Yes.
Councilman Jenkins? Yes. Councilman Kaplan?
Yes.
Councilman Paff?
Yes.
Councilman Takac? Yes.
Motion carried.
Non-consent agenda resolutions, resolution 90-12, payroll claims.
So moved. Second. Discussion? Please call the roll.
Council President Demuro?
yes.
Councilman First?
Yes.
Councilwoman Jenkins?
Yes.
Councilman Kaplan?
Yes.
Councilman Paff?
Yes.
Councilman Takac? Yes.
Okay, there's no,
Wait, is it permit? Well, we have the resolution to request to waive a road opening permit on South Avenue, over the Boundbrook, Piscataway
Can you
between.
back up for a second, under discussion?
there's no workshop.
Well, no, there's nothing on there, but we didn't get to that yet, we're still on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just making another resolution, which would have been 9212, which was a request to waive a road opening permit for for South Avenue for the replacement of the bridge, 2B-146, which is in between Piscataway and Middlesex Borough.
Whereas the governing body desires to assist the county of Middlesex in performing certain road improvement activities on South Avenue, now therefore be ordained by the mayor and council of the borough of Middlesex, county of Middlesex, and state of New Jersey, that the county of Middlesex shall not pay any fees towards road opening permits.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Council President Demuro?
Yes.
Councilman First?
Yes.
Councilwoman Jenkins?
Yes.
Councilman Kaplan?
Yes.
Councilman Paff?
Yes.
Councilwoman Takac?
Yes.
Motion carried. Not
I just wanted to mention that I had 3 calls from residents with complaints of foul odors. They're on Voorhees and Giles that have these residents. So at the Board of Health meeting last week, I brought up the issue. The Board of Health has this nice contact list, which I refer to the first point of contact being the county. So I've passed that information on to our residents. They called, were told different things by county people, whoever they spoke to told them different stories. One being that if they're not going to be home in the afternoon, that might be this is between 8 and 10 o'clock in the morning. If they're not home in the afternoon, they could not take their complaints because I guess they had to show up. I'm wondering why 4 hours later, this is going to be addressed by somebody and not within the hour, so that the resident has to sit home all day waiting for them to show. So the complaint was never taken. Another resident called, I believe the complaint was taken, but same scenario, they're not going to be home. Nobody came out. So I did mention it at the Board of Health meeting, and I was basically told that, number one, they didn't tell me what company was the dog food smell. I guess I'm not privy to know what company that is. The other smell was definitely spray tag. This is a new process, and we need to give it time. But I guess my concern is, if our residents are calling the county and getting conflicting stories, then it doesn't seem like the county knows how to handle our complaints. So this phone chain is not working. So I just want to mention that.
This one company's been a problem probably for 15 years. We used to have the people call the police department, so we have a record and take it to the court. One of the problems is that at one point the state was doing it. Now we know they never get out. But by the time the county, if they do come out, it's usually 4 hours, so the wind shifts and the odors are gone, so they never find anything.
Right.
The only thing we can do is either talk to our state officials and then maybe the county to see how we can improve this so we get some action. I don't know where the dog food smell is coming from. Do they have any?
They wouldn't. They know what company it is, but they didn't want to tell me.
You're a council person.
Well, I guess it doesn't matter.
Draft a letter.
It is.
Draft a letter for my signature, saying that I want to know the company.
Please do.
You can. Is it Moisture from the hot
Well,
dogs?
that's what they're claiming. I don't want to say it is them, because we don't know that, but
They're hot dogs.
that's, yeah.
They're usually grease. All right. That's the letter.
Now, I also could say that the Board of Health did mention contacting the county and possibly bringing somebody into their meeting. So, I don't know if that's going to happen. I would love to have advance notice because I would like our residents to know so that they can go to the meeting. I don't know if they plan on doing that.
I could see if there was other residents there that they wanted to get into a liability position, but they should have told me after it was over.
They did invite the county, well, our registered environmental specialist is inviting the county environmental health and the health officer both in for the next meeting. I can talk to him tomorrow and find out if that's been confirmed. I'll see if they can make it and get back to it.
Yeah, because I would like to let some people know. They also invited the companies to come speak
Yes.
on their behalf, and they never responded.
I believe Spray Tech is coming in at this meeting too, according to Vice President Shirt. She's mentioned, and Ray, I don't know his last name, called up and said that he would be at the first meeting, the meeting in April. Not my phone, no. I don't want to say his name wrong, mispronounce it. I just know that she did mention that he called me up and said he was invited by the, I think she's the vice president of the board, and that he would be there in the first meeting in April. So we now have Spray Tech coming in. Hopefully we have the environmental director coming in and the board official, who is now his name is Les Jones, because Mr. Pappy has retired as of December. But I will confirm that tomorrow, make sure that
Yeah,
he,
let me know, because
that-
I want to pass that on to a couple of our residents.
Okay.
Okay, we have the privilege of the floor. Anyone want to speak, please use microphones.
Hello, my name is Nadine Kenny. I'm at 41 Glengarry Road in Middlesex, New Jersey, and I've been a resident for 20 years. I wrote a letter to the Rec Commission on behalf of a colleague, Mr. Stan Spirito. Before I approached the Rec Commission, I did talk to the director of athletics at the high school. Mr. Spiridon was a teacher, coach, and also administrator at the high school for almost 40 years. And he did make a major impact in this community on our children. I think that sometimes we forget the impact that this has. He coached for many years and offered a good role model in the classroom and on the field. And when I approached the director of athletics about naming the field in his honor, he explained to me that it was a town field and that the school district has no policy over it. And that if I wanted to pursue it, I should feel free to do so. But that, you know, the school district had no authority. I've talked to several members of the Board of Ed, including Mr. Yasek, the president, who said that they were in favor of it, but they don't have jurisdiction over it. That's your jurisdiction. I ask you to reconsider. I understand that you had a meeting with Dr. Baker, and they would like to do a field, you said, down at Malger. But Mr. Spiridon coached on the high school field, and he was at the high school. And we, his colleagues, would like it done at the high school. That's where he taught. That's where he coached. That's where he took that team to the state championship, at the high school field. I understand that the Malger fields are available, but with all due respect, I think this would be a nice way for the town and the school district to work together to offer the best in his memory. I'm sorry, but Mr. Spiridon was a great role model for our children in this town. And to name that field in his honor allows the high school students to know what we stand for. That we stand for integrity. We stand for sportsmanship. And I ask you to reconsider. I didn't get signatures because I was told it was unnecessary. I was approached by several varsity softball players who had Mr. Spiridon and asked me, Ms. Penny, can you please do something? I'm asking you to reconsider. The class of 2011 has the money. It will be of no cost to you. Do we want positive role models? Do we not name fields in honor of people who have done positive things in this town? I understand the superintendent has his thing, but that's not what we want. That's not what the girls want. They want the field named for him. I ask you to reconsider.
Anyone want to change their vote?
They vote. I personally agree.
Well, where does it state that every time something is negative,
We get what?
the school, the superintendent always throws it back to the borough. Every time they want to make a decision, they always throw it to us. You know, when's it stop?
I think it's a legitimate question that the young lady asked us to consider, and I don't have any problem with that. And if no one's going to change, then that's going to be it.
We didn't vote on it.
We didn't vote.
It is
It was just,
consensus.
yeah.
I think that the school throws on our lap, then let's do it.
You know, another thing that we mentioned at that meeting with the Board of Ed was possibly doing something within the school itself in his memory. And they did say that they would think about that, so.
I'm sure. I'm not speaking out of turn. I spoke to Mr. Yasek. I'm sure if you guys decide to do this, that will be fine with them. I spoke to Mr. Yasek. I spoke to
Mrs. Schuler, I spoke to Mrs. Bensinger, I spoke to Mrs. Harity, and Mrs. Walsh. I think they are unaware of this motion. They told me they were not aware of it. So I'm just saying, I mean, if it's a matter of saving face for anyone, they can take total credit. I don't really care. I'm just doing what the softball girls and his friends, and including myself. Mr. Spiridon was a great mentor for me as a new teacher at Middlesex High School. I don't really care who gets credit.
Can
Okay, I'm gonna ask for a vote.
Can I make a motion to go ahead with it?
You want to?
Make a motion to second.
This is the motion to change the field to his name.
There's no name on it now.
There's no name.
What's the song?
It's fine for a second.
Second. Second. No seconds.
No, we got 2 seconds. Please call the roll.
Council President Zamira.
What, are we voting to say yes or no right now that this is
You
gonna
wanna
happen?
Want to talk about it?
I don't need to talk about it, I'm just making sure that's what we're doing.
That's what you're doing. You make a motion to name the field after.
Do you have enough information on it?
I don't have any information. I don't know who he is. I mean, just because somebody works with the town for 40 years, why does that qualify him to have something named after him or after her? I think we should find out who the individual is.
No.
Well, no,
We
I think we
understand.
should find out
We
who the
understand the
individual
problem.
is, the pros and the cons of why we should name this field after one individual, and then make an intelligent decision.
Can I make a
Coming
suggestion?
off-
Can I make a suggestion so we don't prolong this? Mrs. Shemish, could you possibly, I know we're asking to do this, because a lot of us up here don't know Mr.
I
Spiridon.
can do whatever you want.
Can you put together what he did for the students and everything?
Yes, I
Before
will.
we vote on this?
Yes, that would
You know,
be
if
fine.
you could do that, I know a lot of us up here don't know what he did, don't know the man, and maybe that would give us a better opportunity.
That would be fine. I would do that. I just didn't want you to dismiss it, that's all.
If you could do that for us,
No
and
problem.
by the next meeting, then we can make a decision on that.
Okay, that would be
Okay?
great.
Michelle, you're gonna have to pull your motion.
Okay. I'll call the motion. Are we
Sure.
tabling? Table, we're on hold, right? Yeah, we just did. Table it, huh? We table motion?
You withdrew.
Okay.
Mr. Ryan.
Frank Ryan, 303 Maple Street. I didn't know I was going to get involved here, but I'm glad I'm here tonight. Stan Spiridon was girls softball coach. My daughters played for him for 4 years. The guy was an upstand, couldn't get a nicer guy. He had county championships, every champion, he won a state championship there. Besides the softball, the guy taught the girls how you should interact with people. It wasn't all about softball. It was about what you do in the world. You couldn't get a nicer guy. And again, championship upon championship, undefeated teams. And that field, not another field, should be named for Stan Spiridon. You could not, if anybody knew him, you'd say name that field. Again, my girls played with him for 4 years, practiced there. The guy was dedicated. They had him for classes. It was a loss to the town when he died. I mean, if there's a field to be named for Stan, that's the field. Not another field, not a road. That Middlesex probably won't have any others, and I hope they do, but he had a state championship, county championships. You couldn't do any more than Stan did. And an upstanding guy, that's it. So I hope you look into it, and if the school said, you guys gotta do it, then do it. The school looks like they do nothing. Take the first step and say, okay, you don't know how to run a school, we're going to do it for you. You guys can do a better job than what's going on there. You all know it. Number two, while we're on the talk about fields in school, I don't know how anybody can look up at a light and say that's no good. Unless you're in a man lift and look at the arm, if you drove around town, there's not a telephone pole that is plumb. I have a pole on my street that's so bent over, I called, public service came out, there's nothing wrong with the pole. That's just the way it is. So if anybody is looking up and saying, oh, that is no good, we ought to get rid of him, he's impersonating an authority figure. That's it. There's nobody that can do it. I don't know how you do it from the ground. I really don't.
I agree with you because the board has the opposite opinion.
So somebody has to go up there and look at the light. I'm in construction, every job we're on, you have engineers that come out and determine how much lighting you need. Somebody just doesn't say put a 100-watt bulb in there or 50. There's width, length. Somebody comes up with what you need. So if it gets replaced, you need that person to come in and say, on this field, you need 2 of these or 4 of these. They know, that's their job. Every highway, every road, they just don't say, oh, put a bulb in there, oh, it's not bright enough, let's change it. No, it's determined before you do it. So with the determination of taking it down that it's unsafe, well, you need the expert to go up there and say it's safe, not safe, before we spend any money. Not, well, the light, oh geez, that could have lasted another 50 years. Nobody knows that. And what you said here, nobody really, it's somebody's opinion, but nobody went up and looked at it. Thank you.
Hi, Pete Watson, Paul Leonard, Sheridan Avenue. I noticed that we're buying the 7 properties and we're getting reimbursed by FEMA. What was the total cost of the damages associated with Hurricane Irene?
I don't have the value, but it adds up to 2.5 plus $1 million.
Okay, and we did
and that's split between 75% from FEMA and 25% from Green Acres.
Oh, they're gonna reimburse us for all of it?
Yes.
That's great. For the houses. That's, okay, that's just for the houses. What about the, you had emergency appropriations for other damages on the cleanup?
We get 75% of the damages that we were able to convince them related to the storm, which are, it goes anywhere from, the language will tell you best, but it goes anywhere from the dam at Victor Cole Park to just a lot of places else in town where we have damage. Andrew, you want to mention some of the items that we put in?
Yeah, I mean, we've put in probably about $200,000 worth of claims already.
Okay. Oh, so right now,
all our files are in.
They haven't given us an answer yet, but more than 75%.
Right, okay. And what's the tax point in this town? $50,000.
It's roughly $50,000.
Right.
Yeah, okay, so that's four tax points. But then we could get some of it back from FEMA, hopefully, right?
Yes.
$200,000.
And we would cancel the remainder of it then.
Right, okay. So as it stands right now, probably for this budget, we're behind four tax points.
No, we're only budgeting $80,000, which is about a 1.5 points.
Okay.
We did a special emergency for 400,000. There's only 80,000 in this budget.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
John Hoffman, 455 Lincoln Boulevard. That woman, I don't know her name, and I didn't know that teacher and coach myself, but it seems like a worthwhile cause to me. Now, Ms. Jenkins, I was also at the Board of Ed meeting with her last night when the superintendent said them poles are good for another 10, 15 years. That's what they said. And I agree with Mr. Ryan. I had it already written down in my notes about, there's poles all over this town, wanged quite a bit. I have one that's been snapped off on my corner now, roped to another one for almost a decade.
Nobody's been decapitated yet. I don't want kids to get injured, but it seems to me as soon as public safety is cried out, things get done. That's how we got the bleachers and everything at the Pop Warner Fields over that whole issue. Once you take them down, they're going to get them again. Why don't we sell that field to the Board of Ed for $1 and get this over with? It's theirs.
I'd love to. You can't sell Green Acres property.
Oh, it's Green Acres?
Yeah.
Okay.
Every field in Middlesex, including the swim pool, is now considered Green Acres.
Okie dokie. Just one quick thing. I didn't hear anything about I guess the attorney there, about the sewer stuff on South Ave there. What's going on with that? Anything, or?
We don't have any numbers back from Piscataway yet.
Okay. Well, I have a concern that really popped up to me there. We've got a drug manufacturing company that popped in along there, and they go through a hell of a lot of order, don't they now? Are their locations being metered, or we just have these businesses just pumping out whatever we want and the taxpayers funding the bills? Whatever happened, I don't know. You know, there's a lot of businesses back there that want to use a lot of sewerage way above what they're paying for, and we the people pay for that. The taxpayers are basically subsidizing the businesses' sewer uses, in my opinion. They're going to be going through a lot of water. I'm sure there's going to be some readings going up along South Ave over there. Someone should look into that. Now, the mayor approached me, the last meeting I brought up this recycling facility that came up in our town in 2007. In 3 days will be my year anniversary I've been going on with the county about that site. A year now. It's disgusting. I went into New York City on Sunday to go to a 9/11 memorial. And I went by my town on New Jersey Transit, and I thought I was in another world. Hazardous waste tanks, garbage dumps, graffiti. What is going on? What does someone have to do just to get people to do their jobs? The county is dropping the ball big time with this new journey. It's been going on for years now, and it gets worse and worse and worse. When is anybody going to step up for the town and do something about it? I mean, I know who was mayor and council and who was on the planning board when this was passed. When is someone going to do something about the agreement they made with this company and get the county to step up their enforcement? Because they're not doing anything. You know, this town's going backwards so many ways, it's not funny. We need to start cleaning things up. I'm sorry. You know, and I do agree with the boat issue. It's been a major waste of time. For one simple fact, there's been an ordinance for decades now that hasn't been enforced. That stated you have to have it in the rear yard or in the garage. Now there's an ordinance that says you can keep it in your driveway as long as it doesn't slip past the front of your house. And all of this ridiculousness is going on. It's actually a compromise. So I don't understand how people's rights have been violated. Actually, neighbors' rights have been violated for 20-something years by the ordinance not being enforced. I'm not against boats, campers, any of that, but there has to be limitations on everything. Everybody can't put what they want on their property. That's the way it goes. You know what I mean? If I wanted to change every law I didn't like, I tell you what, it'd be a different town. It'd be in better shape, too. I don't know. I really want to see some enforcement start going on in this town. The mayor asked me about if I seen any new Journey trucks. Stopped home at noon yesterday. Here's a new Journey truck going by my house. And in my opinion, these garbage trucks should be tarped, whether they're empty or not, because there's residuals blowing around the bed. I pick up trash in my yard every day. I don't care if I live on a busy street. There used to be no littering signs. There used to be all kinds of things there that just disappear and don't get enforced. I'm sure if these buggers were driving up and down Beechwood depositing crap all over the place, there'd be a bunch of crap going on. I just want people to start doing their jobs, because I'm getting tired of doing it for them. Thank you.
I did want to thank John for bringing that to our attention last week, and based on our discussion where he said the trucks were untarped and riding in the wrong location. They're supposed to be going to 287 via exit 8 or 9, and he's not doing it. I did send a letter to the police chief, which apparently they haven't picked up any yet. Tomorrow I will call Journey myself and warn them. Mr. Attorney, can you find out for us what the county and state is doing in terms of the violation notices? I know they've been hit with quite a bit, but nothing seems to be getting done over there.
How about, can we get town officials there?
I was just saying,
MCUA.
right, the next SWAC meeting I will, bring that up.
Can you bring that up to town? Thank you.
What about our zoning, construction, and fire going to that site? Is that out of the realm? Because the place is a mess. There has to be violations out the wazoo from everything that I can see there. And just to make things clear, I didn't say the truck was untarped. Now, can a citizen take a picture and register his own complaint?
Oh, you can.
John Hoffman will do that then.
Any other comments from the council? I'm going to close the public portion meeting. We do have an executive session. 2 items. One is on PDA negotiations, and the other is on disability retirements with a potential lawsuit. I don't anticipate, after we go from action to open sessions, I don't anticipate anything on either one of these at this time. 5 minutes,